Hello, Thursday. Hello, group. Hello, ladies. We are live with our girl Sesh conversation that we have every Thursday at 1 o'clock, except for last week. It wasn't in the group and it was later in the day. However, today I'm very excited because who's finally at this one of these who's been inspiring so much of our conversations, inspired me to have this conversation today as well. This word called authenticity. Everyone knows the word. Everyone loves the word. There is entire books, seminars, life coaching that is centered around authenticity. But let's be honest, what is it? What does that really look like? Here's my thought about authenticity is based on my personality. It's about being a rebel, rebelliousness of the status quo. Now, that's not everybody's version of authenticity. That's what we're going to get into today with our two amazing humans. And if you'd like to join, there is still room. This is a free-for-all live conversation in the group about things that we all want to tell our truth about, tell on ourselves, be truthful about these conversations. So without further ado, let's talk, ladies. Let's talk about authenticity. Let's start with what your definition is. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That's okay. But let's start with your definition. Tell us what you think authenticity is.
You want me to go first?
Go for it.
I think it's kind of what you said. It is a little rebellious because I know I've done it. And when you truly step out into authenticity in those really hard, courageous moments to stay true to who you are, what you stand for, and what you believe, it's stepping out into that courage and willing to take on the controversy that it can bring on and still willing to say, but this is what I stand for, regardless of what other people may think.
Absolutely. What about you, Tasha?
That's what I was going to say is really, truly not caring what other people think and being you are at your core. And just, it reminds me of being who you are as your inner child. Just that person that we were talking about that kind of last week. Like you asked what we would tell our 25-year-old self, like that childlike person that sometimes we shy away from because we're afraid of what the world's going to think.
Absolutely. I mean, notice how we all kind of agree with the definition of authenticity, right? We all agree with it. How difficult has it been in your life to show up in that definition you just said? You just said, this is how you define authenticity. And now showing up in it is the hard thing. And I'm going to give you my example. Right now, currently, I am in the midst of getting my house ready to sell. And it's just pain. I mean, look at my background. Look at what's happening here, right? And when I got on here, Jessica was like, I love your hat. I'm having a really bad hair day. There is no amount of dry shampoo that could get me to take this hat off. So there's a part of me that's authentic enough to tell you that. But then there's also a part of me that's like, is it really authentic for me to just be like, here's streaks of dry shampoo in my hair and let's take the blur off the background so you could really see how patchy. See, I think that for me, showing it in authenticity is my honest version minute by minute. That's how it is for me because I've lived most of my adult life trying to be everything else but me all the time, right? And the people-pleasing thing, that is a tough spot. So I feel like as much as I want to go out there and say, be unapologetically you, I really am saying is be unapologetically you in this one moment, because I can't guarantee I'm going to be that the next moment. So what about you? Where do you guys feel like you are showing up in your life exactly the way you've defined it?
I'd say in my business, only because that's what I'm asking of those who come to participate in it. So as much as I may have fear or doubts or anything like that, I still, there may be nerves at times, but I still show up as me because I want to lead by example. And I have to remind myself that if somebody doesn't appreciate me or what I stand for, then that's on them. They'll find their fit elsewhere.
So give us a time, Jessica, of when that occurred, like a recent time, not from 5 years ago, but a recent time where you really had to be that version of you, where you were scared, but you showed up anyway in your authentic self. And you still kind of like, in the middle of the night, think about it going, oh, I should have done this. Give us a moment in your life.
I mean, it happens at so with my business, leading a group of women, it happens at every meeting. Every meeting I have nerves and, all that leading up to it. But then I just have to step out of my own comfort zone every single time, because the nerves stem from, is everybody going to be happy? Is everybody going to be entertained? It's that whole people pleasing thoughts that come in as part of that fear. But then I know that once that time comes, I just have to step out and be me. And those who it resonates with, it'll resonate with them. And it's so funny because after every meeting, I always take this deep breath, oh, I got through it. So
Yeah.
and every single time. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, but that's part of my authenticity, is that those who may not know that about me, that I do have my own nerves and fears every single time. So
Yeah. What about you, Tasha? As a real estate agent, there's always this balancing act of being professional and being this version of authenticity. Tell us about your experience.
Well, in business, I have always said I'm not the type of agent that's going to show up in high heels and a business suit. I'm going to be wearing comfortable clothes because that is my authentic self, and I want to work with people that are my people. So I feel like I am authentic in that manner. My personality is that I am very down to earth, and I'm going to be emotionally on a level that people can connect with me, because I feel like that's important. So I feel like in business, kind of like Jessica said, I'm more authentic in business than I am in personal, which is funny that's similar. I think
Into that a little bit.
yeah.
Why are we working harder? That is so true, right? Why are we working harder at authenticity in the places where we think? What do you think that's about? I don't even know how to phrase the question.
Yeah, I know.
And is that I think there's also this thing of there is a healthy version of people pleasing, right? Because maybe that's why we're new to each other, we're strangers, so we're trying to put our best selves up front, but we can also sense other people's energies. And I don't know, I got a text from one of my oldest, dearest friends today, and she's doing some healing therapy work. And she says to me, will you please write me what you think about, describe me how you know me and how I show up in the world. That's a big ask, right? Of that type of thing. So if somebody asked you that, if somebody texts you right now, based on what you two just said, if somebody said, hey, I need you to describe me. So let's say, Jessica, you're I need somebody to describe me and to tell me, somebody you trust, somebody you know loves you, to have you describe you the best they know and how you show up in the world. How do you think they would describe you? Do you think that the version of authenticity that we just described would be in correlation to how your loved one would describe?
Okay, first of all, I just wanted to say I do have a customer in the shop, but she said she doesn't mind if she's on camera. But if she has a question, I'll have to stop and help her. I feel like a family member?
Somebody, it can be anybody, but somebody you trust that could describe you. You needed this information for your life coach. So you go and ask your best friend, your mom, your neighbor, or your family member, would you describe me in the most honest version of your representation of me and like tell me how I show up in the world. Would it be similar to your version of authenticity, or how do you think, what would they say about you?
I think there's one thing they would say that I don't always show to everyone. And there's this really witty, a little bit crass side of me, but I only like show that side of myself with those I'm super close with, just out of fear of it not being well received by some people because they might have boundaries. But that's also me like respecting possible boundaries. So, because not everybody does well with that kind of wit, but those closest to me know that about me.
That I love that. That's a very honest answer. What about you, Tasha? Do you think somebody that would describe you, that of course you honestly trust, and your version of authenticity, would that match or would it mismatch?
Ironically, I think it would depend on who you ask. Like, I can picture a couple different people, and I feel like I'm very much a chameleon, and I show up differently for different people, and I match how I feel like they want me to show up.
I have something to think of. I've actually had this conversation, and I've had an epiphany on the subject matter of being a chameleon, because I had a falling out last year, a big falling out with somebody. And then she went and did a smear campaign on me on her podcast. And one of the things that she said about me in a negative way is that I'm a chameleon, that I act differently around different people. And I brought this up with a friend of mine who's also a coach. And she said, no. I know that side of you, Jessica, and that is not being a chameleon. That is called being adaptable. And in the business world, adaptability is a really strong trait because it allows you to adapt to different personalities so that you can have successful conversations. So I'm going to encourage you, Tasha, to look at that as, depending on how you look at it, are you truly being a chameleon, or are you harnessing the power of adaptability?
I think that chameleon's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that being able to adapt to whatever environment that you're in,
right,
can match the energy of whichever person's.
I think there's just a negative connotation on the word.
Yeah.
Whenever people use it, it's usually in a negative context.
Okay.
But that's why I'm changing it to adaptability, because that's, what my friend who's also a coach said, that, if it's for the sake of adapting to someone else's personality and meeting them where they are too, so you guys are kind of meeting in the middle, that's actually a good trait to have. But if it's adaptability in the sense of completely changing who you are to please that person, then that would be more of being a chameleon. That's at least my perspective of it.
Yeah.
I guess I mean it in both. I guess depending on the situation, I do it in both ways. So I'll admit to that I do it.
But I think most of the time for me, it's the adaptability. But there are times, like in hindsight, when I've been in contact with somebody, we're all like, in hindsight, after the fact, go step back and go, oh, I wasn't truly authentic, or I wasn't truly standing up or being me. And I was more of that chameleon versus adaptability, because I was more concerned with pleasing the person than standing in my true authentic. So it happens to me too. And I honestly, if anyone says it doesn't happen to them, I would be like, I think that's
you're like a sociopath if that's the case.
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like it's also a conditioning for us. I learned how to be a chameleon at a younger age to fit in, right? So I wasn't adapting to my environment. I was chameleoning myself because I was trying to manipulate the fitting in environment. Right. I don't want to be the only girl in the gym at the dance up against the wall. Would it have been okay? Absolutely. But for me, it felt traumatizing because I was already so different from everybody else. And I think so much of our upbringing has so much to do with that. Like, I came to the US without speaking English, but also because of how my mom got here, we weren't in any of those English as a second language. She came as she was recruited by a hospital. So she wasn't given a lot of government support in that sense for us to integrate. I was in a classroom of full English speaking people the minute I landed. right? And I didn't know how, so I would just observe and watch people's mouths, and the teacher had to point at things. And so as I got older, that kind of traumatized me to be like, I need to be quiet. I need to observe. I need to watch what people are saying for that belonging thing. And now in hindsight, like you said, Jessica, I'm like, I didn't have to do any of that, right? I mean, I did, but I didn't. So I get what you're saying, Tasha, in terms of some experiences just make us more, I don't know. I don't even know if the word manipulation is necessarily a bad word, right? Because manipulation is sort of shaping something. I think it's only a bad word, like chameleon, and manipulation is, I think, a bad word only when it's being used in a negative way. Don't you
Well,
think?
it's getting our needs met. Like manipulation, we've used it in a negative way, but manipulation is learning how to get our needs met.
Mm,
And
good.
it's we often learn it as a child.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
Right. As babies,
yeah,
fed to get.
cry. Yeah, exactly. Try to get fed. We scream when we're hurt so that we get attention paid to us. And it's not a negative thing always, because
Yeah.
we get our needs met.
So now that we're getting to like really in the roots, we're getting in the weeds of things. How do you think it's our responsibility as more aware people, right? Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. So we know better now that chameleon, adaptability, manipulation, those aren't all necessarily negative, only when it is used as a negative weapon. How do we change the language in the world where we're not shoving down each other's throats? Authenticity, authenticity. And like, because don't you kind of feel that right now? Don't you feel kind of like, okay, remember a couple years ago, it was vulnerability that was being shoved down our throats. Now it's authenticity. How do we reframe it to where it's what we're talking about here, the real version of it?
I think you and I kind of touched on this in the podcast that we did, but I think it's what, because you brought that up in the podcast, and I was like, and I said to you, that word just doesn't really enter my brain too often. And so I think going back to that, it's that we don't stay laser focused on the word, but rather just
Mm,
in it.
yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So in other words, leading by example, right?
Yeah.
We need to be perfect
Backstory.
because we're human.
Right. Well, I think just to give everybody the backstory, when Jessica and I were talking, and also this relates to last week when Tasha was there about her events, is it's such a natural part of you. You just breathe it. You just breathe. Like Tasha was like, of all the things that she could have done, why build an event, right? Why build an event? It doesn't have to be about puppies or getting their pictures taken. It's just events in general. She is an event whisperer, but it's so natural for her. She didn't even think like, what? This is something other people want, right? And it's the same with you, Jessica. You're so authentic, and authentic in a way, again, redefining it. Not authentic like, here's me, Jessica, and all of my rawness, but like every story she's ever shared with me, I'm always like, man, this girl stands up for all the things, like what she believes in. If she believes that that freaking mountain is blue, she's gonna fight for that blue mountain to be blue. Like if somebody wants to go change that color because they're unhappy with blue, she's like, leave the blue alone. Every story. And I'm like, man, she is just out there fighting for the things that she believes in, the people she believes in, the arena that she plays in, the arena she wants everybody else to play in. And it came down to the conversation. I'm like, dude, you're just so authentic all the time. And she was like, I never even thought that that's what it is. We're just going to talk about you. Go.
Yes, go ahead. I got to ring up a customer.
And I was just like, that I think is the authenticity of it all, right? Like when you told me how shocked you were when the ice rink wants to partner with you, you're like, well, they could have done it themselves. Why would they want to? And it's because I think you just do it so naturally.
Yeah.
I think really that is more authentic than trying to describe how we can be authentic. Because I think there's already authenticity in us that exists that's like naturally spews out into the world. So if that's true, if that is true, you are an event whisperer, right? Because obviously at this point, like people are watching it, looking at it, wanting to be a part of it. I mean, to the point where that's how you're known in the real estate world.
I think it's just, it's more than like, I've been thinking a lot about that. It's not even the event itself. It's my genuine connection with people and the being authentic with people. Like I was talking to somebody, I went to the Tacoma Home Show this weekend and there happened to be a dog vendor there. I wasn't going to seek out vendors. I do go to vendor events to seek out vendors, but this one in particular, I was going to the home show. And there happened to be a dog vendor there that I hadn't seen before. And so I was talking to them about dog days. And I said, I do my events a little bit different. Like I do a one-on-one with each of the vendors. I get to know them. I want to be able to refer them out in the community. If anybody, says that they need X, Y, and Z, I want to be able to know who they are as a person too. And he's like, yeah, there's not a lot of event coordinators that really give two shits about us. They're there to just put our name in the X box that we're going to be sitting at. They don't care who we are. Like we take water around to our vendors. We make sure that they're taken care of. Like we truly care about them. And it's just that connection that we make with them. And so I don't even know that it has anything to do with the actual event coordinating, like the event itself. It's the connection and the community and the camaraderie that happens putting the whole thing together. Like the beautifulness that happens in that part of it.
And that's why I think Jessica's a human whisperer.
Yeah.
That's what I was telling her, because I was like, it's so natural to build an environment that, ladies and gentlemen, there's no gentlemen in this group, ladies in this group. I did not coerce these two to show up. However, it always is the right timing. Jessica runs, operates, and founded a community of women gathering / networking group. Tasha happens to be a member of this said group. It's fascinating that the two of you are talking about the core values of who you are and you connected. Do you see where I'm going with this? Like, this is, I think, is what authenticity at its core is, that we can't seem to translate out into the world that needs to be translated out into the world, because I feel like that's what I connected with, is that underlying energy of connectors, right? So Jessica does it in a way that gathers humans. Tasha, you do it in a way that nurtures and cares for humans. Do you see what, like, it's not that any pieces are missing. It's just one is a higher level of priority in your actual soul being. And then you create that out into the world. Oh my God, I think I just had an epiphany. Wow. What do you think? I feel so like that makes so much sense, because last week we were talking about the zone of genius. Is like, why are we all looking for purpose? We already are in our purpose. So then you bring authenticity into it. Now, how do we go out there and make a living from it? That's another thing, because, we spend so much of our lives in our professions, and so many people hate what they do.
God, I love what I do.
Or it drains them. What would you say to those people that are like, God, I want to quit, but I'm on golden handcuffs. It's how I support my life and that whole thing. What is your suggestion in that sense?
I'm sad for them. I wish they could find something they love then, because I love what I do. But it's because I find ways to do it in a way that I can be authentic. Like, that's why I said it's so much easier to do it in the working world. My personal life is where I have a hard time being authentic.
Interesting. Jessica, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. This kind of reminds me of the quote I shared with you in Messenger the other day, where it says, the work isn't looking for the sign, the work is becoming the sign.
Mhm.
So, in other words, I think oftentimes people are like searching and searching and searching for that purpose when like outside of themselves versus like if they go within and just quiet the mind and go within and find
Mhm.
within themselves and just become that.
Yes.
Breaking that down is probably for someone else that
I can totally get behind that. I think that's why coaching is such a huge arena right now. I was watching I am a business nerd and I watch a lot of reports and read a lot of reports on businesses. And this one guy was talking about the three industries that are growing by leaps and bounds because there's such a shift in our human experience right now. And number one is health and wellness, whatever arena that is, because people are really seeking a lot of self-love and self-care. Second is pets, y'all. Pets. Anything to do with pets. Any second largest opportunity of business. And then the third one was I don't even remember because I didn't care. I think it was event like community type, not co-working space. It wasn't co-working space, but it's similar to that type of business. Businesses where people can gather. But he didn't call it co-working. I can't remember what it was called. I'll get that and then put it in the chat later. But those are the three largest growing industries in business right now. Right? Because we are seeking ourselves. We're no longer seeking. And the three industries to not get into right now is restaurants. It's cost too much money to run a business where it's based on quantity of people coming in. And the other one was obviously I don't retain things I don't care about. It was two other businesses. I just remember restaurants because everybody wants to, open a restaurant or something like that. And it's not highly recommended because people would rather feed their soul than feed their hunger right now. And I think that's a really, it's not a trending thing. It's a human thing is what I think that is. So now that both of you are like, okay, this is what I think authenticity is. This is how I live in authenticity. This is how I'm gonna just starting today. Authenticity is number one on my priority list. What do you think for you are the small steps that you can take where it's not just one thing you said one time, but like you're intentionally aware of it more often than not? What are the steps that you would like to take to be more in that? Because both of you are like, gosh, that's just me. That's just how I roll in life. Well, what about the rest of us? We need some tips.
One of my favorite
think about it. That's my tip.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is, "What other people think about me is not my business." Like, and I really try to live by that. Like, it's hard. And I feel like the older that I get, the less that I care, but I still care. Like, I can't say I don't care because I do. Like, I'll make a comment sometimes and I'll see the other person's reaction and I'll second guess myself and like, oh, should I have said that? Or did I say the wrong thing? Or, but I try really hard to live by that quote and doesn't always resonate, but that would be my advice to other people.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
It's natural to experience that, once in a while, if not more often, just because that's human nature, but to not dwell on it is the key. And that takes practice, like you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. My one thing that I would share with the world is showing up. Like showing up is such a bit, everybody talks about consistency, but I think showing up. And I've dared myself to do that the last couple of times, like my bad hair day, the day I was like, and the things. And Tasha, you kind of brought that right at the forefront where you're like, I just had surgery.
No, I'm like, I'm here.
At 24 hours ago, but you're not at the point where you're bleeding out and you're still here, because that would be performative. I think
No.
like I want to be a part of a conversation that means something. So I want to be here. And that again, I think is fulfilling that quote of, what people think about me isn't for me, it's about them kind of thing. Like that's what it means to show up is in authenticity is it's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be perfect lighting. I don't around a ring light. You know what I'm saying? That also kind of impossible. And even if you have mobile ones that you put on your phone, how often do I remember that?
No, when people talk about social media and making posts and looking, I just don't look at the camera, because then I don't have to reflect on what it looks like. So I'm not one of those people that'll make 10 recordings and not post it, or I don't post on social media that often just because I forget to do it. I'll take 500 pictures and post twice. Like I don't go and post. I'm horrible at it, but I could care less in that. Like that's the one thing that I really don't care. I will post whatever picture and whatever video. I don't know. That's one area in my life that I really don't. I will be authentic in that department, because I've heard people say before, like you're critiquing yourself. Other people are going to watch that video. It's going to take them the 5 seconds to watch it. They're not even going to think about the hair that's out of place, or that you said the word in a funny way, or, misspoke, or whatever you're critiquing. They're not going to think 2 seconds about it. And so to remake that video 10 times is so silly. So I got over that a long time ago, but I don't know. I guess that's an area I do show up authentically.
Well, and I think again, I think that's we're compartmentalizing what we assume showing up is, when actually it's like where Jessica's at right now. Literally, she's in her shop. She's got to stop, talk to customers, right? And it's not, again, I think there's a big difference between performative version of like, look, see, this is my life. It's so busy. And I'm versus authentically like, hey, I want to be a part of this conversation. It just happens to be in the middle of the day where people come into my shop.
Yeah. Like they did LA.
Yeah. So how do you feel like, okay, last question, and then, we could talk forever about this, but how can you tell, especially the world you both live in, because you're seeing people on a personal, one-on-one, face-to-face, belly-to-belly, more than most people based on your actual professions. How do you tell when someone's inauthentic versus maybe that day they just like ate too many laxatives? Extreme.
Of all the comparisons, you chose laxatives.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel both are kind of extreme, right? Like, how I remember when I used to go out all the time and it'd be like, oh, don't make eye contact, because you can just sense I can never tell though. My husband used to be like, stop judging people. Don't do that. You don't know. And I'm like, well, I kind of do. I just don't know how I know.
I try to live by the rule of sizing up somebody's authenticity, like when you first are getting to know them, because I place myself in that position of they may not be fully bringing themselves authentically out of fear of judgment, or so I always give people a chance to show me who they are before I'm like, oh, they're not being their authentic self. Because, give it some time, because we're human and everybody needs grace, and everybody's at a different place in their life at a different time. Like Tasha and I have both been sharing that, like, we've come to this place in our lives where, like she said, it's really none of my business what someone else thinks of me. But at the same time, we still care to a point. Somebody that we come across hasn't gotten that far along of not caring as much. And so they're more in depth in the people pleasing place.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's not my place to judge that.
Yeah, that's good. Grace, good word. That's a good word. Giving people grace. That is okay. I feel like that was a challenge because I'm the opposite. I'm very much like very guarded with new people. And I work with a forgiveness coach to kind of let go because of being burned in the past, right? The sister wounds and just people being so inauthentically love bombing kind of thing. I didn't know what love bombing was until all this language about narcissism. So I just it's a natural response to be like, what? Except for when you get into energies where it's already open. See, that's totally different. Like I've gone to different networking groups where I feel very guarded. Immediately I walk in and I'm like, oh, I better get my sword ready. I better have my shield up. And then there's spaces like your space. And I'm not saying this to kiss up either, people, okay? Because I wouldn't even have them on here if that was the truth. But when I walked into your space, Jessica, I didn't feel so guardy. I didn't feel like, I mean, obviously, I didn't even read a single note I had in my hand. So I could feel authentic. It's also the space you hold. My forgiveness coach is that way. My mentors are that way, where I don't feel as guarded in that space. What are your thoughts about that, Tasha?
For my business, I feel like I work with a lot of buyers and I work with a lot of first-time home buyers. And so when they're coming to me very raw and having to tell me a lot of their personal information and where they're at financially. Like they're in such a raw state that I don't feel like they're not authentic. At least the people that I've come across haven't been. I haven't experienced that. And maybe I've just gotten lucky in that aspect. I think, to give myself credit, I think that I open that door for people to be authentic.
Yeah. See, I was going to say that. I was going to say maybe you're the one that opened the door for them to show up that way, right?
I do feel that I am very, and I mean, one of the first things that I tell people is that I'm going to be very honest with you. I may not say things that you want to hear, but I'm going to say it in a loving way. I'm going to say it in a nice way, but you may not want to hear everything that I have to say. It's going to be truth, though. I'm always going to deliver the truth. So I'm very genuine with people. So I want them, and I want that communication door to be very open. And so I say that right off the bat with people. And so I feel like I give them that space that they can be authentic with me as well. Because it's a vulnerable place when you're buying or selling a house. And so I don't want to work with people that aren't authentic, So it goes back to that. I'm not going to show up in high heels and a suit because I don't want them to fake who they are. I'm not going to show up fake.
Yeah.
I don't want to work with fake people. So I have.
Do you remember back in the like late 90s, early 2000s, there was that saying, fake it till you make it, right? Which sort of bombarded all of our promotions and marketing out there in the world. And I bought into that. Don't get it wrong. I bought into like, okay, yeah, we're going to fight and fake it till we make it.
Statement.
Now I feel like I'm paying the price. Okay, so that was I promise this isn't my last question, everyone. What price do we pay by being authentic? And then what price do we pay by being inauthentic, right? So for me, it's that. The price I was paying for the fake it till you make it is burnout. Complete, utter burnout of like, I don't want to do it anymore. But also I think the price of my authenticity now, that the price that I pay is that not all 8 billion people on the earth are going to be my friends. Darn.
So when I've been an agent for 8 years now, but in the beginning, they all told me, don't ever tell anybody that you're a new agent. They said the fake it till you make it. And I very much disagreed with that because of how honest and authentic I feel like I am. And so I would say to people, I am newer in the industry, but I have mentors that I can go ask questions to. And because I'm newer, I'm eager to learn and I will get the answer for you. I'm going to be the first one to say, I don't know the answer, but I'll find out. And I felt like by being truthful with somebody that they would be more willing to work with me than snubbing their nose and saying, oh, I don't want to work with you because you're not 20 years in business. But everybody would tell me, no, fake it till you make it. And I just very much, I hate that statement. I mean, there's a certain amount of confidence that I feel like you should bring to the table, regardless of how new you are at something or how much you don't know about something. There's, I think, confidence until you make it, but not.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And what price do you pay by being authentic?
Yeah.
Do you
By being unauthentic, you mean?
No, well, the fake it till you make it was the inauthentic. Which one you answer?
Oh,
You got to answer both. Yeah.
okay. I feel like then you work with people that you want to work with.
Yes. Because I feel like these are questions everybody always asks, especially in the world of business. Like, how do I stand out? How do I get people to buy in? How do I fill the pipeline? How do I affect my bottom line? But the way that it's being answered in the world is not the way we're talking about it right now. Right?
Like Jessica's group, she's not out there advertising. People are coming to her because of her authenticity. Like that was one of the questions that like her and I talked, because I just joined the group. That was the night that I met you, was the first night that I'd ever been there. And I just joined a couple nights ago. Yeah. And so that she doesn't advertise. It's word of mouth. It's people it's people that are drawn to her group. And it's very much like you were saying, I think most networking groups that you show up to, they are putting that unauthentic face on to try to earn your business or, you know, pretend that they're someone that they're not to get you to like them, where Jessica's group is very real and down to earth. And not that it's not about business, but it's getting to know who you are as a person. Yeah. Like, how can we help each other as women grow in business by being women in business, not showing off our businesses?
That's so good. Again, Jessica did not pay us to plug her group or anything, everyone. This is just how it happened. Jessica, what are your thoughts on what price do we pay by being inauthentic, and what price are we paying by being authentic?
Wait, what was the first one?
What price do we pay by being inauthentic? Like we're faking it till we make it kind of attitude.
And there's a couple prices you pay when you're inauthentic. Number one, you're going to draw people to you maybe you wouldn't want to draw to you, or you're gonna present yourself in a way that obviously isn't authentic. And later on, people will find out who you truly are, and then those people don't trust you anymore. So you lose the possibility of building a trusting relationship because you didn't know who you are from the get-go. And I've experienced that, in the past, because I've been in network marketing. And when I was really, really, really young, they train you to fake it till you make it. And,
Yes.
and it took a learning curve for me to be like, I don't like this. This feels icky. And so no matter how many times, it got to a point where no matter how many times I was told that was the way, I started fighting back, going, no, it's not the only way. And I don't agree with this way. So I'm going to do it my own way because I don't agree with this. So it took a learning curve, and it took, just going through the motions and going through my own experiences to come to that place of, ew, this doesn't feel good. I don't like the way it's making other people feel. And when it makes other people feel icky, it just leaves me feeling icky. So that's also, the price you pay is at the end of the day, at some point, you're going to be left feeling icky that you didn't show up with who you truly are.
Yeah. And then what price do you think you pay for being authentic?
But you're not going to please everyone, but you come to a place of being okay with that.
For sure.
So, because those who are meant to be in your life will be in your life. When you show up as who you truly are, those who are meant to be in your life will be in your life. And some of them are only meant to be there for a season, and that's okay too. But you learn to realize that and accept that that's the case, because there's been many people that have come into my life, and at the time, for the time they were there, it was great. And then things happen and they're not in your life anymore. And you're like, but why? What? And then it took, maturing and growing to learn that, well, that's the way it was meant to be. They were in my life for that amount of time because we were meant to be there in each other's lives for that time for a reason. And now we're, moving on in different ways for whatever reasons. And coming to accept that too. But
yeah, I agree. Okay, promise this is the last question. I've been saying that 3 questions in a row, but this one, because I feel like every week we get into bigger subjects and then it ends up getting deeper and deeper. And like, let's go back to our 18-year-old selves. So not the 25-year-old, just take it. You're walking down the street, going to the coffee shop, and you see the 18-year-old version of you. And you want to tell her something about authenticity, because that's a real conundrum age for that, right? You just gotten out of being a sort of carefree kid where you just your parent, I mean, I'm not saying this that I did not do my own laundry, but at the time you didn't have to do anybody else's laundry but your own, or your mom did it for you kind of thing. What would you tell your 18-year-old self when it came to the authenticity, fake it till you make it type thing? What would you tell them?
never let anyone else's opinions define who you are.
Yeah. What about you, Tasha?
I was going to say dance like nobody's watching.
Would your 18-year-old self be like, girl, I do? No, just,
I would tell her to do it anyway.
yeah. I would tell my 18-year-old self, wear that prom dress, girl, to the grocery store. I hit a lot of my need to be all glammy and flashy because I was afraid that the judgment would be so hard. And I just loved it. I didn't do it for performative reasons. I love things. Yeah. So I think I'd tell myself, like, wear the things you want to wear, because it was more geared towards that at 18. I'd been in uniforms my whole life. So being in something other than what everybody else was wearing was really hard. Really, really difficult for me. So interesting. Yeah. It was really interesting to think what was shaping you, what had shaped you at that age. And then they go, oh, go be an adult now.
Yeah.
Your own choices after you've not made a single choice. Now go make your own choices and hopefully you don't get in trouble.
Make the wrong one. Yeah.
So, well, again, what an awesome conversation. Thank you for sharing your truth and your honesty. We'll be back next week, y'all. It's going to be the Jessica Tasha show.
Can I take a screenshot?
Yes.
I can share it with the other ladies. Hang on. Okay, ready? And smile or whatever you want to do. Got it.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yes, invite anybody else to come on. This is not a like let's schedule a time. It's just gonna run every single Thursday at 1:00. If you're here, you're here. If you're not, you're not. Every week we're gonna okay, so let's just do one right now. What do we want to talk about next week? Let's just throw it out now. What's the next subject?
I have no idea. I was supposed to have my girls on here with me today, but then I didn't go to the office. I'm trying to keep it low key and not do anything. I'm trying to be a good girl. But I did invite
You're good. You just had surgery, girl.
I know. I'm a mover and a shaker. I can't sit still. So it's been hard for me to just stay in bed.
Yes. No, stay still. Jessica, you've inspired 2 of the 3 conversations. I guess it's up to you.
Yeah.
Trying to think. Put me on the spot.
Well, the only subjects I really steer away from is political or religion, but everything else is, I think, up for debate in terms of like anything. I had a lady who
I think you need to talk about comparison.
Ooh, comparinitis.
Yes, because I see that all too often, and really so much on the essence of like looking at somebody who one may think is so far ahead of them, or look at what they're doing or how they're presenting themselves. I wish I could be that. I could never be that. And I know we touched on this, but I think that would be a great topic, because I think that a lot of times when us as women have those thoughts, we are not serving ourselves, and we're not realizing that person that we're comparing ourselves to that we think is so great. Often we're seeing their highlight reels of their life, and you actually have more in common with that person than you think you do, and that you too could do whatever it is that you're so in awe over, if you just get over your damn self and step out of your comfort zone.
Do you follow Mel Robbins, the new book that she wrote, Let Them? Yeah. So she's, one of the chapters in there is about comparison and how you can actually use it as a good thing. So yeah, that's a great subject.
I'm going to take it up a notch and add on to that. In our pursuit to compare, is it truly about competition, or is it about envy? Because that is what I learned from Inside Out too, is envy is a real characteristic in us. And it's
part to that, and maybe you won't agree with me, and that's okay. I think the third part of that is, well, I don't know what a good word for it. I want to say self-confidence, but I think there's a better word, like how you view yourself.
Yeah, like self-esteem. You think? Yeah. And I love that you just said, I'm going to bring a third piece in, and I don't know if you're going to agree with that. That's a whole point, ladies, of these conversations, is we can still love each other and care for each other and not ever freaking agree.
Each our own individual person.
Like, we really need to stop being housewives type of attitude. We all have to be in the same everything, because that's not true. I feel like we can be on completely opposite ends of our views that shape the world and still be like, you know what, though, I care about you and I love you enough to get you back at 2 a.m.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that's what this conversation. So thank you for bringing that.
Oh, I love you. Wonderful.
I feel like that's what we should really be talking about, is all of that the thing. And I love it that we say that, like, hey, you might not like this, at least you're forewarning us, so it's not an all blowout like Real Housewives.
Yeah, and then if you don't, I'm just gonna scream and shout and stomp my feet.
Right? No, we're not having that.
No, I'd be like, well, okay, that's, if you don't like it, you don't like it,
Yeah.
It was just my
Exactly. So this is that. I think it'll really test us in this next subject, though. So come back for some juicy, where it's going to go, conversation next week about comparing ourselves to other women. All right, my sweets. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Until next time, we'll girl sesh it deeper and wider than we've ever gone before.
Thank you.
Bye.